Bag, people, a mixed bag. The Supreme Court. It's frustrating. Today, I find myself a little bit down around the Supreme Court stuff. That it's frustrating. I just it's. I was thinking this morning as I was reading through some of these things and continuing the show prep. What is going on? We run the Supreme Court. John Roberts runs the Supreme Court like a middle school pickup basketball game where we got to make sure that we don't give too much to one side or too much to the other. This is why this show is The Ordinary American. I'm your host, Paul Sarkis. I should say that. This show is dedicated to leftism, anti-leftism. Okay, that's how we started it. Why? Because leftism is fighting for the soul of America. And these Supreme Court decisions, it's like, we got some good ones. We're going to go over a few. We did some yesterday. We went over a few. We got some really bad ones. But America isn't a middle school pickup basketball game on the playground. We're not supposed to keep it even. Okay? The Supreme Court aren't the refs. Roberts isn't supposed to say, well, I can't give too many to this side and then too many to that side. It's ridiculous. All right, before I go further, I got to say the best commentary I heard yesterday about the Supreme Court. Can't remember who it was. I wish I could. I'd give them credit. But it was brilliant. It said, I 100% guarantee you that the birthright citizenship case is going the other way. And it's going the other way because we haven't had anything leaked. That's when you know there's problems with the Supreme Court. Okay. Again, we're The Ordinary American. I'm your host, Paul Sarkis. We're going to get right into it. I want to start off with President Trump. Anybody who's been watching the show knows I'm a triple Trumper. I'm a triple Trumper because everything changes with him. Everything. We've been told forever Trump won't leave in his first term. Trump worked with the Russians. Not true. He did leave. The fake hoax on January 6th where it was a Fed op. We've been told the Hunter laptop, et cetera, total fake. Trump's going to defy the Supreme Court. Total fake. He's abided by every single ruling and fought in the courts. I'm going to play this. This is from yesterday. This is our man, Trump.
Birthright citizenship is next. What are your thoughts? Birthright citizenship. What are your thoughts? And will you accept it if it rules against you?
Well, I guess I have to accept it's the Supreme Court, so I'll accept. I think it's very bad for our nation. We're the only nation that does it. No other nation does that birthright citizenship. No, not even close. Some did it. They ended it. It's tremendously destructive. It's extremely costly. I don't know. It's up to them. But in terms of for the good of the country, it'd be great if they didn't allow it. It would be great. But I can't tell you. The Slaughter case was the big case today. That was really a big case because
we're going to get to that. But my point in showing and starting with this one is when you listen to the left, the Democrats speak about Trump, what you see is he's going to defy the courts. He's terrible. What you get in real life is that he was docile. I mean, hey, I guess, we'll have to live with it. It's stupid. He didn't use the word, but I'll use it. It's his word, retarded. Okay. But that's Trump. Okay. He's not defying the courts. Mondami the other day says essentially we're going to defy the courts. Haitians can stay here. The Democrats are the ones who have sanctuary cities, which is defying the courts. Sanctuary cities. Okay. So don't tell me Trump is some disruptor that way. He's all American all the time. I'm a triple Trumper. I wanted to lay that out. Now, so what happened? All right, we got some good, we got some bad. Birthright citizenship. I'm not going to get into the full legal stuff, but I am going to go over some practical stuff and some legal things. I often say, professionally, I was raised by politicians and businessmen in Boston, largely. Okay, at least at the early part of my professional life. In Boston, there was a great sports radio guy named Eddie Andelman, and he used to say, well, I give him credit. I think it's his, but maybe it's somebody else's. He was the first one I heard say this. There are three important things in Boston: sports, politics, and revenge. So I was mentored by these politicians in Boston, hardcore. They used to tell unbelievable stories. We'll mention something here in a minute about fundraising. The reason why I bring it up here is because they were almost entirely Democrat, because Democrats control the state, but they shared wisdom with me, one piece of wisdom. Our job as elected officials is to employ the unemployable. That's the Democrats. Okay? If you're from Massachusetts, you remember the Turnpike Authority. Every politician had dozens of people who were working at the Turnpike Authority. It was a place you stuck people. Okay? They also taught me when you have the votes, you can get anything done you want. And if you have the Speaker, the Senate President, and the Governor, you can do anything you want. You've heard me rant about Thune. He's lying. We're going to get to that. I'm bringing this up under birthright citizenship to say Trump is now going to have to go do it another way. You can see in his demeanor, he wishes it was done the right way. It's going to be heavier lifting this way, but he is not going to give up. We're now going to hopefully see some bills. We don't know because Thune, these senators hate Trump more than they like America. But birthright citizenship should have been a layup. Why? The idea is you can get yourself to American soil anywhere, Guam, anywhere, have a kid, and they're a citizen no matter what. It doesn't matter who you are. Now, there are two glaring exceptions that should have informed the idiots on the court. We're going to get to that too. Two exceptions: military people and diplomats. Obviously, those people who might be in America for various reasons, military might be because they're attacking us or they're here on trips, diplomats. Why? Because those people might not be loyal to America. So you obviously can't have people having kids and then funneling them back into the system. Well, the illegals are essentially an invading force. Okay? This is common sense, layup stuff. Roberts twisting himself up to do the middle school pickup basketball rosters, keep it even. Amy Coney Barrett, I mean, what a disappointment. And I have to remind myself, the great James Madison, there's a book called The Great Little James Madison by, I'll forget her name. She wrote great kids' books. We used to read these to our daughter, all about the American founding. The Great Little James Madison. And he wrote Federalist 51, if men were angels. Men are not angels. The Supreme Court justices are just people. They're susceptible to all of the personal foibles that any of us have. If you're going to be driving your kids to school, you don't want the mean moms to get on your case if you ruled badly. If you're going to be going to a country club or going to some other nonprofit organization or some other civic something, you're going to be susceptible maybe to people getting on you if you made a bad ruling. Amy Coney Barrett, to me, seems like somebody who's extremely susceptible to that stuff. I would contrast that with the GOAT, Clarence Thomas, who seems completely impervious to that. He has his values and his morals. Go back to what we always say, James Carville. The only moral imperative is power. Why? Because if you don't have power, you can't do anything. No values, power. So birthright citizenship was a layup. We can't have foreigners coming here. We know that there's birthright citizenship industry. Now, I did see that Jeanine Pirro was going to start to try to crack down on those birthright citizenship mills where foreigners pay to come over, house, etc., have the kid, and then move back. We'll see. Here's my idea. I think the Democrats will like this. Tell me what you think. I think every pregnant Israeli woman should be flown on an Israeli plane to come here and give birth so that their Israeli children are also American citizens. I think if you do that, the Democrats will suddenly be against birthright citizenship. And we crack down on all the illegal Chinese. Do it legally. Don't do the illegal stuff. Do it legally. It's just very disappointing. All right, you can read a lot more. There's some great analysis. Trump is going to do it legislatively. I think we'll see. I'm a little down today, guys. I'm a little, frustrated and down. All right, I want to jump. As you know, I always have to check Trump's Truth Social before I get on here because he's liable to say anything. Okay, so he's got a bunch of things in here. I'm going to just see if I can. Okay, the latest one, it looks like, was about 39 minutes ago. This is beautiful. This is Trump. This is why I like him so much. I would like to congratulate President Xi and the great country of China on their massive birthright citizenship win. President Donald J. Trump. He's right. That is what that is. Okay? That is what that is. A massive win for China. We're going to come back to his situation. Now, we got some wins. It's not all losses. One of the wins was another layup. I mean, count me as I don't know how it got this far or why we're here, but boys can't play in girls' sports. Simple. But let's read the GOAT. Okay? Let's read the GOAT. The GOAT, Clarence Thomas. Men and boys with gender dysphoria are not women or girls, even if they believe they are. Common sense. Sex is an immutable biological characteristic. It is binary, and man and woman, boy and girl are the terms that correspond to adults and children of each sex. Okay? It's a much longer decision, but that's common sense, simple. That was not a hard one, although it was not unanimous. Again, gets back to the Save America Act. This gets back to the filibuster. When the Democrats get control again, they are going to remove the filibuster and work to pack the Supreme Court. This gives you an indication of what we're up against. Frustrating. Okay? Now, Thomas wrote the dissent in the birthright citizenship case. It was 91 pages. That's extremely long for him. He does not usually write those things that long. Okay? Extremely long. He had a lot to say, and I'm glad. Let's see if Trump gets it fixed. Okay, we won another one. I don't have a clip for this one. I'm just going to mention it. We won another one. It was about political donations. Oversimplified because I'm an ordinary American. I love my flag, my God, and my country. Okay? I don't pretend to be an expert because the experts suck. The experts get everything wrong. That's one of the cases we're going to come back to, which is the Slaughter case, which Trump mentioned again. He was mentioning it in that clip. Okay? But political donations. I've spent most of my professional life in and around state level politics, as I've mentioned, and I can tell you that donations are a real thing. They move the needle, obviously. Trump showed us that in the 2015-16 election cycle when he talked about it. This case that was in front of the Supreme Court essentially said, you can't have restrictions. What did that do? Everybody's saying, well, that's a win for the Republicans. Yeah, it is. But why? Why wouldn't that be the same win for both sides? Because what it did was it shifted power from the PACs, the political action committees, to the political parties, Democrat Party, Republican Party. The Democrats operate better in the shadows. They like the PACs. George Soros operates through and with PACs. They love that. That's the great Lola. She's over there snoring up a storm. That is not me. Okay. But that case was a big win for the Republicans because it's going to shift power away from the PACs and to the political parties. The great George Washington, in his farewell speech, said political parties are dangerous. They're like fire. They can be great and create warmth and cook food, and they can burn your house down. You got to be careful. But it's a First Amendment concept. By the way, I have a huge push and pull with the political donation world because I see it firsthand and I've seen it firsthand. And on the one hand, I get that you can't stop people from having freedom of speech, and sometimes spending your money is freedom of speech. But on the other hand, there's a lot of money sloshing around. Look at George Soros. This case is also important because one of the things it's going to do is it's going to allow those political parties to tap into media more. There's a rule in media around political spending where basically a media organization, a TV station, a radio station, et cetera, they can't discriminate. They can't say, I like, knucklehead Biden, and I'm not going to let Trump advertise. They also can't say, Biden gets to pay $1 and Trump has to pay 10. It's got to be the same. And it's all the lowest number for that time slot. So on the one hand, stations do great around political events because lots of stuff comes in. On the other hand, they have to be careful because they don't want to have their numbers so low that they don't get enough money for it. But that kind of spending, by the way, is going to be driven more towards the Republicans through the party because now the PACs won't be able to operate as much. So, positive. So we got something good with the girls' sports. Boys can't play in them. We got something bad with birthright citizenship. We got something good with the political donations. We're going to talk about slaughterhouse here in a second. So it's a mixed bag. I don't like that the Supreme Court is managing this stuff like picking teams. There is right and wrong. Okay, birthright citizenship is wrong. And now hopefully Congress is going to stop with their Trump hating and get to business. I say this a lot. It cannot be said enough. If you have the Speaker, the Senate President, and the Governor, you can get anything done you want. Down in Washington, it's the Speaker of the House, the Senate Majority Leader, and the President. You can get done anything you want. Trump already said, send me a bill to fix this birthright citizenship thing. So you got the President. Okay? John Thune doesn't become Senate Majority Leader unless he was capable of whipping a vote for a subject like the Save America Act, where 84% of America is in favor of it. He doesn't get the job unless he's capable of doing that. So he's lying. Why is he lying? He says he's for it. I don't know if he really meant to expose himself that way, but he says he's for it. That means somebody else in the Republican ranks is against it. They won't tell us who that is. We need to have a vote. We should tie it to this birthright citizenship thing and do it all in one. And Thune can do it. He's choosing not to. And they don't have to change the rules. The filibuster is still in place. Do the filibuster. Maybe it takes 5, 6, 7 weeks. Eventually, the Democrats won't be able to keep control. And then you just go to a vote. Okay? Thune doesn't want to do it. That's why he's not doing it. Okay? All right. Let's get back to Trump's Truth Social because there's a bunch of other things where we're going to get to the slaughter rule. Or not the slaughter rule. I'm thinking about sports on the playground. Let's get back over to it. All right. That was one. That's another endorsement. That's another endorsement. That's not what I want. An endorsement. Yeah. Okay. So this is the slaughter case. He's trying to draw attention off of the birthright citizenship case onto this one. The biggest and most consequential decision issued by the court by far is the slaughter case, which overturned the very famous Humphreys executor rule. This whole concept of power has been fought over for nearly 100 years, going all the way back to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, blah, blah, blah. It's an honor to be the sitting president who, after all these years, won this very important and hard-fought case. We had other good victories too, and we also had the birthright citizenship. See, this is the mixed bag, which we'll work on to correct in Congress. But the big slaughter was slaughter. The Republican Party was treated very fairly by the United States Supreme Court. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Okay? I don't think that's true, but he's playing a different game than me. That he's involved. I'm gonna get rid of that. He's involved, and he's got to still go back to the courts. I'm going to play something else here in a minute. I want to get to it, but we'll take that off the screen and talk a bit about slaughter. Slaughter is super important. Why? Okay, we talked a little bit about this, but we're going to a little bit more detail. Slaughter is super important. The main thing that the left has tried to do, basically since 1912 when Woodrow Wilson got in, is essentially take away elected representatives to us. Consent of the governed. We can remove them. This Congress is the only one that can make laws. They've tried to take that away so that we have the appearance of our government. But really, what happens behind it is what's really going on. That's the ruling class, or what I call the elected class. The elected class behind the representatives and the senators and the president. What does that mean? That means that between the Chevron deference case, which we'll get into, and the slaughter case, what they did was they created a subcategory of experts, and they infused those experts with extra constitutional power. In the Chevron case, which came about in the 80s, it essentially said, everybody, including the congressional committees, has to defer to the experts, the people in government. the regulators. Slaughter said basically the president can't fire these people except for cause, giving them almost like tenure. So the presidents were beholden to these people who spent their whole life there. The left, with their long march through the institutions, took over all those positions. And we see that in the EPA and other regulatory agencies. Trump, more than anybody else, has been shrinking the size of government. It's the smallest size, I think, since the 60s. I think it's about 300,000 people. Needs to be less and less and less. Okay? But it's a massive case because it gives the president essentially the right to fire who he wants to fire in the executive branch. Let's go back and review. The founding fathers gave us three bodies: legislative, judicial, executive. Legislative makes the laws, judicial interprets them. Unfortunately, sometimes they like to make laws too, and the executive executes. We don't want independent agencies. This is one of these crazy, insane things that people say, so-and-so, the Fed needs to be independent. No, it doesn't. Independent from who? Independent from you. That's what they mean. Independent from you and from me. If you remember back during the idiot Comey nonsense, when there was this call to have the FBI be independent, and it wasn't, they said it's not good that Trump is exercising power over. Excuse me? A secret police that's independent? The Slaughter case fixes that, or not entirely. The Slaughter case and the Chevron deference case, which was decided a year or two ago, took all that away. There's no more deference to the experts, okay? No. And Trump can fire who he wants. I know the Lisa Cook thing at the Fed, but they did it in a way that she's going to get fired anyways, just not right now. This gets back to my comment that what Roberts is doing is he's running the Supreme Court like a middle school pickup basketball game on the playground, trying to set the sides evenly so there isn't a big winner. Total retard stuff, okay? Good cases and bad cases. Slaughter was huge, really huge. So, we'll see. Now, if we can get some movement from Congress, we absolutely need the Save America Act. By the way, think about this about birthright citizenship. We could get the Save America Act today in the perfect form. That still doesn't prevent, if the birthright citizenship rule stays, it still doesn't prevent 1 million Chinese people from coming over here and having babies, or going to Guam and having a baby, getting their kid American citizenship, going back to China, raising them, indoctrinating them, and saying your plan is to go back in and take it over. So not unlike what we're seeing in New York with the Democrats giving their party to the socialists. Now you're going to be able to have them all coming over from all these various countries. So we really do need to correct this. All right. I can't talk more about that because I'm getting more frustrated as I talk about it. I want to switch gears and talk about two or three more things. One, I want to get to Peter St. Onge because he's got a very critically important piece about Europe. I'm gonna skip through two things really quickly. There's a guy by the name of what's his name? Corey DeAngelis. I'm putting up one of his Twitter posts right now. Okay. What he's mainly focused on education. He's been mainly focused on showing the public school teachers that they are allowed to leave the union, but keep their job and keep their compensation. He put out this tweet: 3,007 employees have contacted AFFT. What is AFFT? Americans for Fair Treatment. Oops. To opt out of their public sector union in the past 9 months. What does this mean? This is critical. The left ruins everything it touches. Dennis Prager. The left has ruined the government. It's ruined unions. Why? All the unions are a money funnel to take our tax dollars through salaries to dues back to Democrats. That's the sole purpose of it. That's it. So in the Janus case from a few years ago, the Supreme Court said you can't force an employee to join a union. You can't take away their job because of it, and you can't take away their pay either. They get the same pay, they get the same comp, and they can keep their job. So what Corey DeAngelis has been doing is educating people. I think he's got, if I remember correctly, maybe 15,000 teachers around the country who have left. Why is that so important? That is an extremely powerful tool if you're a public sector employee, teacher, or any public sector employee. You don't have to stay in the union. And as soon as you pull out, you pull your dues out. You are defunding these leftist unions and preventing them from doing as much nonsense as possible. Over 3,000 employees, and I think Corey DeAngelis has 15,000 teachers. That's a massive amount of money coming out of the dues, which go 99% to Democrats. Okay, if you've paid attention to the show, we're anti-leftist. We're also anti-Democrat because Democrats are the party of the left. Okay, so I just wanted to mention this. If you have a friend or a family member who's a public sector employee who looks and says, I kind of don't love that I support all this crazy leftist anti-American stuff, leave, contact the AFFT. Okay, where is it again? The Americans for Fair Treatment. By the way, you can go to my X account, The Ord American, and find this and go get to them. Okay, and they'll help you leave. And then you get to have more of your money, keep your job, and help the country. Everybody wins. All right, next thing I wanted to talk about before I get to the great Peter St. Onge. This is John Solomon. John Solomon, man, this guy is just an absolute beast. And I mean that in a great way. He is on so many things. This is the Fauci stuff. Fauci got his pardon, but Solomon talks about something, and I wanted to bring this up for people like me that are frustrated and want a little hope. Let's just listen to this.
We know that in the end days of Joe Biden, Anthony Fauci got a pardon. He can't be prosecuted for anything before January 20th, 2025. But if Rand Paul puts him on the stand next week, as he's going to compel him to do, and Anthony Fauci does not tell the truth this time in the body of evidence that's there, he could be instantly prosecuted by the Trump Justice Department.
Right,
if he does tell the truth, he's going to have to admit he lied to us previously. We know.
Okay. Now, what he left out, and he might have got to it a little bit later, but what he left out is two critical things. Fauci got his pardon. Maybe we can question the pardon. We'll get to that. Maybe the auto pen, oatmeal for brains, Biden stuff. Okay, forget that for now. When you have a pardon, one of the reasons that somebody gives you a pardon or gives you immunity, it operates as a similar thing legally, is so that you can't take the fifth. The Fifth Amendment is I don't have to self-incriminate myself. So if I did something wrong, I don't have to say I did it. Okay? Fauci now has immunity. He cannot claim the fifth. So he can't say, I'm not going to answer that question. He has to answer the questions. If Rand Paul's doing his job right, some of what he does I like. A lot of it is just talk, and it frustrates me. Let's see. If the Justice Department is on top of this stuff, they'll have people who are questioning Fauci with the right questions. Fauci can still perjure himself. Fauci does not get to claim the fifth. So while we may not be able to get Fauci, who knows, may not, frustrating, but we might be able to get others with Fauci, just in an absurd way. Dr. Fauci, we have evidence that says that you sent emails and text messages trying to stop the public from knowing about the vaccines not working. They have the emails. If he perjures himself, you can get him on that. He probably won't perjure himself. What does he have to do? He's going to have to be either super tricky, but if you have the right person asking questions, he'll have to give up other people. That will be good for America. If we can get there. Okay? And Solomon is pointing that out. Fauci is a total criminal. We've been through this before. We've talked a lot about wait until gay America really figures out what Fauci did during the AIDS epidemic back in the 80s and 90s. Just wait. They haven't yet because it's been politicized, and they're still pretending that they're almost all on the same side. You can read about it. It's been very well published. He's been looking for this vaccine nonsense to get the money in the pockets of the drug companies forever. This isn't a new playbook that he did during COVID, okay? He's responsible for a lot of suffering and a lot of deaths. All right, let's get to St. Onge. Wait, there was one other thing. Do I move on? Hold on. I want to go St. Onge. Yeah, we'll go right to St. Onge because I'm looking at the clock. Okay. The great Peter St. Onge. We put him on a lot. He does these great 3 to 4-ish minute videos. And we try to do what I call a film study on his videos. A, he's got a dry wit that gives Steve Carell a run for his money, and B, he packs a lot of information. One of the things that this is about the employment situation in Europe. The American system that Trump has been trying to deploy, which he's doing a great job of, the Hamiltonian system. Side note, we talk about this, Hamilton, Lincoln, McKinley, all assassinated. I think you can put Kennedy a little bit in there. You know, some people put FDR in there, certainly at the beginning. What does it mean? It means you got to manufacture and make all the food, all the weapons, all the medicine, all the elements and technology that you need. Nothing critical is made anywhere else. You have to control it. Okay? You got to control everything critically that you need. That's part of the American system. The other part is we're going to deal with nations one-on-one, sovereigns. No more of these global bodies. Too much corruption. And we're going to go to tariffs. So we aren't going to let free trade be used as a whipping, be used as a whip to manipulate the American markets any longer. Trump's been doing a great job. One of the things he does in his negotiations is he says, we're going to put big tariffs on you. Here's what we're going to do. This goes to everybody. But to everybody, you have one get out of jail free card. We can negotiate deals for sure, but you get the one absolute best option. What's that? Come make your product in America. Zero tariffs. What does that mean? Car manufacturers. You want to sell to America? I'm going to tariff the poop out of those things unless you open up your markets to our cars, which they don't want to do. Or, Mr. Car Manufacturer, bring your business over here. Now, he had two things working for him when he started to do this. What did he have working for him? One, they all want our market. American exceptionalism. They all want our market. What's the second thing? The Europeans have gone hard left. Trump has gone hard originalist or right. When everyone in the world was going left, there wasn't much difference between America and Europe in terms of some of these industrial codes, regulations, taxes, whatnot. But with Trump, the delta becomes huge. So he has going for him the fact that they can't make things in Europe in a way that make any sense anymore. Too much regulation, too much taxes. Come to America, lower taxes, lower regulations, not low enough, not a few enough in terms of regulations, but getting better. And you want this market. So let's watch the great Peter St. Onge as he talks about the jobs numbers, and we'll do a little film study. My film study, by the way, we stop and start a bunch, so we'll see. That's a little bit, if you remember, what was that show that used to be on TV, I think in the early 90s, or around there, Science Theater 2000 or something, with the three guys in the front row talking about the science fiction movies. It's a little bit like that. Film study.
Europe is throwing away its industrial base, with Volkswagen announcing 100,000 layoffs on top of the 50,000 it's already cut. Now, the rule of thumb in car manufacturing is multiplied by 5 for supplier jobs, so that's 500,000 jobs. Now multiplied by population, and in U.S. terms, it is equivalent to 2 million manufacturing jobs.
Woo!
I mean, Europe is well on its way to becoming an open-air museum for Chinese and American tourists. Last week, dying German car maker Volkswagen, which also owns Audi, Porsche, Bentley, and Lamborghini, announced it's laying off 15% of its workforce after profits plunged by 3/4 to the point Volkswagen is making 3 pennies on the dollar, which is interesting because that's below their cost of capital, as in Volkswagen's main business is lighting money on fire.
Funny.
This will drag their shares down 75% since pre-COVID, almost 90% since their peak. The CEO is blaming Trump's tariffs, which gobbled up a third of profits, Chinese competition, which gobbled up their sweetheart margins in China, and above all, Europe's brutal production climate with energy prices and taxes twice U.S. rates, an empire of red tape that, going by compliance hours, is up to 3 times more than the already crippling regulation in the U.S. In short, it is almost impossible to build anything in Europe. Even when you've already got the factory, you would be crazy to build a new factory.
Okay, we're going to come back. This is what Trump has going for him, and he knows it and he uses it. They have regulated themselves into purgatory. Okay? They've put themselves into manufacturing jail. Done. It's going to take a long time to get themselves out. Those CEOs, partly when they're criticizing Trump's tariffs, they might be doing it for local political reasons. The other reason is because they're just stupid and they see it that way. But what you're going to see here in a second, they're not that stupid because they're coming to America to build their cars. Trump understands these things. He understands he had two things. They needed the market and they can't make it over there. Why? Because he took us in one direction while they were going in another. We have drill, baby, drill, tons of energy, tons of natural gas. We're doing tons of nuclear stuff. So that's going to come online over the next 20 years and it's going to be a game changer. Not to mention chips, etc. He's cutting regulations. I think he cuts 10 regulations for every one that gets put in place now. Okay? We'll go back and listen to Peter, but this is the advantage of Trump, and this is the American system. He's using what we have to bring manufacturing back.
Factory in Europe. The problem is it's much bigger than Volkswagen. Every major German car maker and most of the rest of its industrial base, so chemicals, steel, pharma, are slashing capacity and moving jobs. Parts maker Bosch already announced 22,000 cuts. ZF and Continental threw in another 20. Krupp Steel is down 11. Delivery company DHL is laying off 8,000. Bayer, 13.5. Put it together, and Germany's lost 638,000 manufacturing jobs since COVID, now running over 127,000 a year, which is 500,000 in U.S. population terms. Worse, it's only the beginning because a bevy of major German manufacturers...
Well, he's getting to it, but what's going on there? That's the opposite of the American system. They're having to now move all of that critical infrastructure, all of the things that they need, medicine, drugs, manufacturing, cars, auto transportations, out of their country, out of their continent. That's the opposite. That makes them extremely vulnerable to supply chain issues. The American system says we want to make all of that here as much as we can. And when we can't make it here, we better have darn good relationship. But that's why Trump is spending our tax dollar money on chips, rare earth minerals, nuclear. We're going to get to one of these stories in a second, I think, if we have time before we go. Okay? Europe is in a bind. They've regulated themselves into jail, taxed themselves into oblivion, and now they have to offshore everything. Not a good spot.
are setting up bases in America,
Bam.
a landing pad for future jobs. Mercedes and BMW announced $9 billion in South Carolina and Alabama. Rule of thumb is $1 million per job, so that's 9,000 manufacturing jobs. Power giant RWE and pharma giant Boehringer are each pitching another $20 billion. Siemens, Bayer, Merck are all plowing billions into American production. So you've got at least 50,000 jobs already in the pipeline, and it is accelerating. So SX brought to you by the Bitcoin Way. If Japan is what not to do on debt, Europe is what not to do on growth. In the past 20 years, Germany's grown half the rate of the U.S. In fact, it's been in technical recession 3 out of the past 7 years. Take-home pay in Germany, formerly the jewel of Europe, is now a fifth below the state of West Virginia. So how to fix it? Economically, it's simple: slash red tape, slash taxes and spending, slash the bureaucracy that currently employs 1 in 3 Germans, and build, baby, build some coal plants and nukes. Alas, politically, it is impossible because Germany is trapped in a grand coalition of left and right in order to shut out the anti-immigrant AfD, the so-called Cordon Sanitaire, basically a government run by Bernie Sanders and Mitt Romney. That means even though the current leader is conservative on paper, he cannot pass the reforms it would take to pull Germany out of its debt spiral, all while Donald Trump gleefully poaches Europe's crown jewels to Alabama.
All right, there it is. Trump using the American system. He is smarter than they are. They could have fixed this. They could have done this years ago. France, to their credit, they haven't done many things right, but they stuck with nukes, nuclear energy. So they'll be a little protected with the nuclear energy. But all of these countries, idiots, imported the young Muslim men. Terrible. We know those situations. And now they're losing their jobs because their companies can't afford to build or make anything there. So when they say all those drug companies are going here, imagine if our drug companies were all over in Europe. Not a great situation. Now we're going to control their drug companies. Not a great situation for them. And as Peter says, you can change this. This is not complicated. Trump is doing that. But you can't do it when you have the globalist City of London type people, neocons, when he says Mitt Romney and Bernie Sanders. That's a neocon with a globalist. This is what's been running the world through London. Trump is the existential threat. They were right. He is changing things. This is why I was a triple Trumper. I'd be a quadruple Trumper if I could at this point. Okay? But I wanted to go over that because that is critically important. It's the American system. We often do a film study around Promethean action, which we'll probably do in the next couple of days because there's so much to talk about. But I want to show one more thing. No, that's not it. Where is it? Is that it? Nope. Maybe I don't have it. If I don't have it, I don't have it. But there is, nope, I'm not going to be able to find it. Wait, is that it? There it is. Oh, I did find it. Okay. Trump announces, let me get this up. This is another major piece of the American system of the political economy. Okay? Trump administration announces Duke Energy will voluntarily terminate offshore wind lease. It goes on to say that they bought an offshore wind lease during the Biden administration, if it was real, and they're going to get reimbursed about $129 million. And what they're going to do, they'll reinvest that money in non-intermittent sources of energy. In other words, gas, coal, oil, nukes, which includes nuclear and natural gas, as part of Trump administration's efforts to lower cost and create more grid reliability. The agreement is the fourth such agreement the Trump administration has negotiated to roll back the offshore wind leases the Biden administration granted in an effort to build 30 gigawatts of offshore wind energy by 2030. If you want to see a great speech, I think it's in Landman episode 4. I know it's a fictional show, great show, by the way, but Billy Bob Thornton gives a great speech about windmills and how non-green they really are and how much they take to build and what they take and then where you're going to put them when their useful life is gone. They're not environmentally friendly. It's another scam. But that one headline is another example of how Trump is transforming America. No more of this windmill stuff. This stuff doesn't work. When it works in the future, Elon is probably going to figure out solar up in space because the sun is so powerful. Okay? And when it works, it'll be great. But until then, all we've had is our money stolen and sent through all these wind and solar deals that even Warren Buffett said the only reason why they invest in them is for the tax credits. Okay? This is Trump. This is why I'm a triple Trumper, because of how he behaved in that press conference yesterday in the White House. By the way, not to mention that he is constantly available and talking to the press, and talking to us through Truth Social. He is the most available president ever. We're going to get back to some Iran stuff. I'm going to be off tomorrow, I think. I'm trying to work out the schedule, just can't be avoided. We might do a special episode if I can film one in advance. You know, I like to do them live. But I'll be back on Thursday, and we're going to talk about Iran. We've been talking to the great Ned over in Dubai. He's in Kuwait right now. He's Kuwaiti by heritage, but he's been giving me some really good information and insights about what's going on there and about how oil is coming out. Prices are coming down. Trump keeps on saying it. Oh, you know what? I did want to play this if I have it. I'm going to play this one thing because I just can't get enough of big time Scotty Bessent, the best Treasury Secretary ever. I don't think there's ever been even really a good Treasury Secretary because it doesn't really go that way. But listen to this guy on oil and gas.
We've got a chart of how quickly the prices went up and how they followed crude, and we're going to hold them accountable on the other side. President Trump talked about it the past week. He had a very powerful Truth Social yesterday. So I would encourage all the gasoline retailers. Some of them are owned by big oil. Some are independent. Some are international convenience chains. I would encourage them to be good actors, especially in the 250th anniversary, because we're watching.
Okay. See how Trump does it? He gives them the warnings. He says, hey, He put out a Truth Social. I'm watching. Oil is now down to the price that it was pre-Iran conflict. Oh, that's Lola. Sorry about that. She's having a little episode over there. And they're saying, we're watching, get on it, lower those prices. They're coming down, but not enough. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Anti-leftist. We got to defeat the Democrats in the midterms in November. Pass the show on to your friends, to your kids if they're too far left, any of your lefties. I love the lefties. Send them my way. We try to turn them. Okay? Please like, subscribe, and follow. Make comments, pass it on X, The Ord American. The email, theordinaryamerican@proton.me. As I always say, the great Father Mike Schmidt says, I'm praying for you. Please pray for me. Greatest life hack I can do is to have a relationship with God. I'm praying for you. Please pray for me. And I like to say, I'm rooting for you. Please root for me. We're going to see you here. I think it's tomorrow, but if it's not, it's Thursday.